Happy game day, Bengals fans. Welcome into our TriHealth pregame live stream as we get set for Bengals versus Raiders this afternoon, week 11 in Las Vegas. I'm Marisa Contipelli, joined by Geoff Hobson. Bengals inactives this afternoon: wide receiver Auden Tate, wide receiver Trenton Irwin, offensive lineman Fred Johnson, cornerback Vernon Hargreaves, and defensive tackle Tyler Shelvin. Geoff, no real surprises to the inactive list, except maybe Tate, who we thought was kind of trending in the right direction this week.
Yeah, he had a bye week, and he had a bye week to rest, and he actually went full. I think the last couple of days of practice, and did not wasn't able to answer the bell today. So I guess that's something to keep an eye on. I think you also that inactive list shows that you get the debuts of Bengals debuts of a couple of players that going to be active on special teams. Clay Johnston, who's just claimed last week, and Mike Thomas, the safety Mike Thomas, not the wide receiver Mike Thomas. So they'll be probably getting a lot of action on special teams.
Absolutely. Well, the Bengals, coming off of the bye week, took two straight losses going into the bye, so certainly want to turn the page here and get a win as they start the second half of the season. But Geoff, you look at the last few years, and the team kind of has struggled, the week following the bye. How do they rewrite that script and try to get in the win column this afternoon?
Yeah, well, thankfully it's not the same teams. You're exactly right, Marissa. I think what the combined score was, something like 84 to 20 or something like that. They've been blown out. Certainly, the last 3 years after the bye. But I think it's a different setup. You say, how do they change it? I think they already changed it because they're in the race. They're at 5-4 rather than struggling to get a win. So I think that's a big difference too. And I also think that Burrow is healthy. They've got their offensive core in place. Whereas, at this time during the bye, in 19 and at least in 19 and in 20, they were playing with a skeleton crew because of injuries. In 19, there was no AJ Green, and in 20, they didn't have Burrow, and they didn't have Mixon. So, it's just a different feel to the thing. They're pretty healthy. Knock on wood.
That's right. And the AFC seems to be pretty wide open right now. Both the Bengals and Raiders bring in 5-4 records. We're getting a chance to watch the offense warm up there at Allegiant Stadium. And a guy who could potentially have a big game today is Joe Mixon. The Raiders bring in one of the worst ranked run defense, 27th ranked in the NFL. And, Mixon hasn't broken that 100-yard rushing game since week 1, Geoff, but it's certainly out there in the cards for him to do that today.
Well, he certainly do. You're right about that. Since he had the 94 yards on 18 carries in Detroit back on October 17th, he hasn't had more than 14 carries in a game. So he's chomping at the bit. And like you said, the Raiders have struggled against the run. They gave up a 149-yard spot, I believe, to the Giants a couple weeks ago. So they have been vulnerable. I know that when the Rams knocked them off the ranks of the unbeaten, I believe Austin Eckler went for, he averaged like 7 yards a carry against them in a 100-yard game. So, they're very, and Joe has actually had success against the Raiders. He's averaging 107 yards in his 2 career games against them, and he averages 5 yards per carry. But that was against Paulie Gunther's defense, the old Bengals defensive coordinator. Now he's going against Gus Bradley's defense, which is it's a disciplined crew, but they also, they're pretty strict with that cover 3. They try not to get beat deep, and that can also be favorable for some run game.
Absolutely. And a milestone that Mixon is also coming up on, Geoff, he only needs 5 rushing yards to achieve 4,000 in his career. He will become the 6th Bengal to do so. He'll also become just the 4th Bengal to rush for 4,000 yards and have 1,000 yards receiving. I mean, Geoff, that just seems like a really big underrated stat for the Bengals running back, to especially the group of guys that he's going to be joining.
Yeah, I agree. You're exactly right. And, that will, so that probably begs the question: are they going to use him more in the second half of the season? Because even though he's had a bye week and even though he hasn't carried the ball very much in the last month, he's still 8th in the league in rushing.
Mm-hmm.
So he's been very dangerous out of the backfield too. I mean, he's been terrific catching the ball, and it took him 60 games to join some great players like James Brooks to get into that category, and he's done it faster than any of them. I think Mixon's a big guy to watch today because I think the running game is synonymous with playoff football. They've talked about it for 2 weeks about how they got to get better in short yardage and how they want to rely on Mixon, and I guess now's the start of the run, literally and figuratively.
Right, and it'll be intriguing to see how they come out. I know we've talked quite a bit. It seems like they're using the pass game to set up the run game. Could we see the reverse of that this afternoon? And when you kind of look at that matchup up front for what the Bengals offensive line is going to have to deal with, I mean, Max Crosby has kind of been a sack machine against the Bengals. How do you see the Raiders defensive line going up against the Bengals offensive line here this afternoon?
Well, the ends are a formidable challenge. I mean, they talked about them being about right there with the top tandem that they have to face, and the tackles are pretty good too. And it's you get a little bit if you're a Bengals fan, you think about front fours like the Jets and the Browns that kind of had their way with these guys. So, but I think that the Bengals they have to go back to that formula that clicked in September and October, and they've done it. They've been here before. They've done it. So. I don't think that's an issue, their confidence, but I think that, the best way, some say the best protection against a guy like Crosby. I mean, the Bengals offensive line, which I think is kind of a stat that you don't hear much about. Pro Football Focus has them as the 10th most efficient pass blocking line in the league. So, Mixon's 8th in rushing. Burrow's the leading passer in the AFC. Chase is on pace to be the Rookie of the Year. They're blocking somebody up front, obviously. So, but how they choose to do it, some say the best way to defend Crosby is to run and don't throw. But we know that the Bengals believe that Burrow got them to 5 wins, and I think they want to. Their ideal game plan is to get up early. The Raiders are a team that is reeling. They lost their head coach. They lost their, all in the space of all in the space of a month. They lost their head coach. They lost probably their top offensive player in Henry Ruggs, and they lost a first-round pick that they had that they bounced because he threatened somebody. So, those are 3 things that have kind of sent this team reeling. So, I think that the Bengals are thinking, let's, jump on them. They could be ready to teeter, one way or the other. Don't let them hang around in the second half. Don't give them any life because they've had a tough month. So don't let them off the mat in the first half.
Could not agree more. The Raiders really have had their share of struggles and challenges off the field. But when you look at the challenge the Bengals defense will be going up against the field, they still have a handful of weapons in Darren Waller, Josh Jacobs, Hunter Renfrow. They added Deshaun Jackson, who made his Raider debut for this team last week. Expect him to be a little bit more involved today. What do the Bengals need to do on defense, Geoff? I know we heard from some of the guys in the secondary this week, and they are laser focused in on this one.
Yeah, I think what the idea, they feel like they have to hit Derek Carr, the quarterback. They have to get to him early and often. They don't want to get him into a rhythm because once he gets into a rhythm, he's a very accurate guy. And I think they feel like they have to that it starts by pressuring him and getting hits on him early, and to take him out of that rhythm. And I know they don't want to see Waller in the red zone. That's for sure. I mean, he's a weapon down there. So they want to do their due diligence before they get inside the 20.
Absolutely. And also limiting and taking away the big plays this afternoon going to be huge for this Bengals defense. One other thing I quickly want to mention is that punter Kevin Huber is making his 200th career game for the Bengals this afternoon. He now just trails Ken Riley by 7 for most all time by a Bengal. Just a huge accomplishment for the veteran. Great to see Huber have such a healthy and a long career here in a Bengals uniform. But kickoff is coming up between the Bengals and Raiders here in Week 11. The Bengals have won 3 of the last 4 against the Raiders. Can they continue that trend here this afternoon? Kickoff from Allegiant Stadium, slated for just after 4 p.m. You can catch all the action on CBS or listen in to the Bengals Radio Network. For Geoff Hobson, I'm Marisa Contipelli. Thanks for tuning in to our TriHealth pregame live stream.